I'm Mary. I'm a lover of fine food, finer wine, and the finest men. I joke, I kid.
I'm Crystal. One thing about myself is I love to experience new things.
That's why you're here.
I mean, exactly. So today I'm like, yes, why gift in the future?
So if we start to make really intentional decisions about what we do today and how they impact the future, then you're almost gifting the future. So that's how.
Sharing your knowledge with us so we can take certain shortcuts and not having to make the same mistakes is just amazing.
This episode, Mind That Gap, the gaps that we see, but we're not always aware of just that cumulative effect. So it's things like the health inequality gap, it's the attainment gap, it's the gaps in your CV, it's the knowledge gap, it's the skills and competence gaps. There's so many gaps that by themselves are not necessarily detrimental. And when you have that compounding, adding on effect, all of those gaps can then mean that you have a very different life outcome to someone who perhaps pursue the same path as you.
Mind the gap is such a big topic, especially with everything that you've listed. And talking about it now, it makes me realise, wow,
there's a lot.
We don't know anything at all.
Whatever you think you know, it's probably 1% of what you need to know. Welcome to the Gift in the Future podcast. Your host today, I'm Mary De Silva, and here with me is the lovely Crystal Ofori.
Hello guys, hi. So I guess today this is our first episode, right?
It is.
Bit scary, exciting. I think I'm feeling every sort of emotion. How are you feeling, Mary?
Feeling good, let's get this.
That's good to hear. Okay, so the title of our podcast is Gift in the Future, and it came up about by our lovely Mary De Silva. Mary, do you want to tell us why gift in the future at all?
Yeah, so I think it's a concept that even before I gave it a name has been quite pertinent. Mm-hmm. I think in my line of work, with HR, you meet all sorts of people. And I think for me, you get to see, a lot of, sometimes people talk about the haves and the haves not. It's not even that deep. I think for me, you can see how a culmination of decisions and choices has kind of bridged the gap between the people that are, success, however you want to define it, and those who haven't yet achieved that. And I think for me, I then started this concept of sometimes our decisions mean that we're robbing from the future. You're kind of withdrawing from a future that you've not, achieved yet or reached yet. Yeah. So the flip side of that was the gift of future. So if we start to make really intentional decisions about what we do today and how they impact the future, then you're almost gifting the future. So that's how.
I absolutely love the title, guys. When Mary first told me about the title, I nearly jumped out of my bed.
I mean, you were kind of jumping. You were very excited.
No, because gift in the future for me it means a lot, because I see myself as the future as well. And meeting people like you, Mary, who's just experienced quite a lot in this world, and sharing your knowledge with us so we can take certain shortcuts and not having to make the same mistakes is just amazing. It really, really makes me happy. But I just wanted, of course, our audience to now know who we are. So, Mary, if you can just talk about yourself, I'll talk about myself too.
Okay, so I'm Mary. I'm a lover of fine food, finer wine, and the finest men. I joke, I kid. But on a serious note, all of that, add family. And I think for me, the one thing is making money and keeping money. I think a lot of people know how to make money. More people don't know how to keep money. So that kind of lends itself to building generational wealth. And even this concept of gift in the future, yes, there's the monetary, but there's also the behavioral, So for me, it's about not only making money to leave for my children in trust funds, but teaching them the skills to be able to manage money, to be able to manage that well. So yeah, that's me.
Wow, well, that's good. And you're not just teaching your children now. Many other people in the world.
You're going to start paying me soon.
That's good. Well, I'm Crystal. One thing about myself is I love new experiences. I love to experience new things.
That's why you're here.
I mean, exactly. So today I'm like, yes. I love challenges. I also hate challenges. So I guess I loathe challenges. Oh my gosh. Depending on what challenge it is, right? It's a love-hate relationship. But I just love experiencing new things. I'm also, I'm a HR professional as well. I'm in my early career. So just started my career in HR, and I did choose HR. Mary used the word, I know she hasn't said it, but she said the word to me before about true HR professional. Yeah. Which just means that we both
chose it.
Yeah. Yeah. And studied HR as well. So for us, this is like our path, I guess, in life. Yeah. So
I think a lot of people fall into that field. It's kind of a thing that, there was an opening and someone said, you'd be good at that. You're good at administration. You're good at this and you're good at that. But I think when you choose HR, and we've both done that intentionally, there's a passion that comes with that. And in the later episodes, we talk about org culture and all of that stuff. But for me, I can see the difference between people that kind of fall into HR and people that wanted to, you know, pursue a career in HR. So we are true HR professionals.
We are. Yes, we are. There are very few. So I guess we can get straight into episode 1 now that we've introduced ourselves and everything. So Mary, would you like to just let us know what you'd like us to talk about today?
Yeah, so this episode, Mind That Gap, it's very, you know, we hear it all the time, mind the gap. So you obviously, you're on the tube, you've got the mind the gap, and obviously that's a very real gap. You don't want to fall in that gap. But the other gaps, and I think it's the gaps that we see, but we're not always aware of just that cumulative effect. So it's things like the health inequality gap, it's the attainment gap, it's the gaps in your CV. It's the knowledge gap, it's the skills and competence gaps. There's so many gaps that by themselves are not necessarily detrimental, but when you have that compounding adding on effect, all of those gaps can then mean that you have a very different life outcome to someone who perhaps pursue the same path as you.
So I guess we're going to delve into these a lot more then, because you just touched into it. So what do you mean by health inequality gap? Because what I'm thinking about is something completely different.
Okay. So health inequality gap. So if you think, even from like where you live, do you have access to good quality healthcare? Whether that's NHS or private. People don't think about this stuff. So I live in an area where pretty much a lot of people have access to private healthcare. So I have friends and, you know, colleagues talk about having to wait 2 weeks to see a GP. I don't wait 2 weeks to see a GP. I don't normally go through my GP, to be fair. Obviously work.
Of course, private
medical.
Yeah.
Most people are professionals where I live, so they would have private medical. Older people that live there, they're obviously equity rich, so they can afford private medical even if they're not working. So what that means is when I access my GP, because you do need a GP, private or NHS, to refer you, even though you've got private medical. When I access my GP, because there isn't so much of a demand, I can see my GP within days, a week at most, 5 working days. But also when I access my GP, it's a different conversation, because he knows I'm not a burden to the NHS. And I don't mean that in a nasty way.
No, I know what you mean,
There's so much demand on the NHS that if everybody needs MRIs and if everybody needs to see physios, they're having to do all of this weighing up all the time. And it's almost, that's why they call it a postcode lottery. So in that sense, the health inequality kicks in, because if I didn't live in that sort of place and I had a health condition, how long do I have to wait to see a GP? If I'm pregnant, what are my outcomes likely to be? You know, pregnant mortality rates in pregnant women, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
How often will your young child, your baby, be seen? How stressed are those health visitors going to be when they see your baby? So all of those things, from low birth weight. So when I had, you know, when you have antenatal care, it's so different when you go private. They're teaching you not just how to make sure that you have a healthy pregnancy, but, you know, in terms of the not medication, but like the vitamins that they tell you to take, telling you about if you want to do, can you start exercise, don't start exercise, all of that stuff. What's useful for you to know. You know, they were even telling us stuff about, you know, nappy rash. And I think when I grew up, it was pseudo-cream. And I'm probably giving my age away, but everyone was using pseudo-cream. And then one of the antenatal clinics that I went to, a lady had like an 11-month-old, and she was saying that baby had really bad nappy rash. Another lady who was very, very well off, you could see from the packaging.
Of course, as usual.
She was like, oh, no, you need to use Metanium. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, Metanium. I was like,
what's Metanium?
Because I'd never heard of Metanium. But the thing is, all of that stuff, it was in Boots. They're like, oh, you can get it everywhere. And it was in Boots. But it's a lot more expensive than pseudo-cream. So I wouldn't have thought to buy a Metanium, because if my reality is pseudo-cream, because that's what I've known. The other medicine, it's not exclusive. It's there. But I don't know it to go and access it. And then if I'm put off by the price mark, I'm going to think, no, pseudo-cream is just as good. But it's not. It was better. Well,
so would you say then your background is what basically leads to that health inequality gap then?
Well, I read somewhere, I think, I can't remember verbatim what they were saying, but they were saying if we define success as, you know, how much money you've got, you know, your health and all of that stuff, a lot of it comes down to the wealth of your parents. And I think there is some truth in that. If I know that if I've inherited property, or, you know, I've benefited from inheritance in another way. I'm going to have access to certain things that I wouldn't have access to otherwise. Certain decisions are made easy for me, right? So you think about it. You hear about people that win the lottery and then literally are bankrupt years later.
Yeah.
Why? Because they don't have the skills to manage that money.
It's true.
So it's not just about leaving wealth and inheritance. It's about teaching the skills for someone to be able to manage that. So I think the parental factor really does play into it, because having great parents isn't just about having rich parents. You can have great parents that aren't rich.
It's true.
They teach you life skills. And you can have really rich parents that throw money your way but don't take time to teach you. So I think it's about trying to get that balance of having the wealth, having the access, the network, all of that stuff, but also knowing how to manage it. And it's, I think when we spoke about the podcast, one thing that I was quick to kind of point out is I'm not here to talk about, it's racism, it's sexism. All of those stuff will exist. We can talk about it from now to kingdom come. It's about what our accountability and what can we change.
Exactly.
I'm not going to change racism one day. I'm not going to take away sexism or any of the isms that exist. But how can I, through my behaviors and what I can control, change my accountabilities and just really own it? And I think that's what's important.
Okay, then. So when it comes to the health inequality gap, what would you say that we can control?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is knowledge. So some people, as you know, at work, your employer offers you, private medical insurance as a benefit. People are like, no, I don't want it. It's expensive.
Yeah.
Actually, did you take time to find out? Because health insurance is often a benefit in kind. And what that means is that your employer pays the price. So let's say for me, my health insurance for family cover is 2,000 plus. I don't pay that 2,000. I pay the tax on the monthly. So it's 2,000 divided by 12 because I get paid monthly. I pay tax at my applicable tax rate on the 2,000 divided by 12.
Yeah.
So that means that my employers pay the price and I'm paying tax on that. When you put it like that, it's not a lot of money.
Exactly, yeah.
So for what I would call nominal amount, I get access to private doctors and physiotherapies or whatever it is that I need. There are other things like some employers will offer you private health cash plans, I think they're called. So Simply Health, for example. And what that means is when I need to go to a dentist, I can access a dentist, pay for it myself, but I can claim the cash back. So it means, let's say I have £100 left and I need to see, I've got this pain in my teeth and I'm like, oh God, it's my last £100, right? Knowing that I'm going to get that money back and knowing actually I can submit it online on my phone.
That's good.
And typically 3 to 5 working days. I'm not having to make a choice between living with pain and dealing with pain.
Of course, yeah. So
a lot of it is also information. And I feel like sometimes we don't seek out the information. Yeah. Someone has told you, oh, those things are really expensive. You're like, oh, no, I've heard it's really expensive. It's like the pseudo cream example, right? Do you ask questions? You've got HR, you've got people that your manager. Did you ask the questions?
True. Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is, yes, there's things that happen to us, such as the area that you live. But even the area that you live, even if you live in, an area that doesn't have, good outcomes, typically, deprivation or whatever, you can still access things outside of your area. And you might be surprised that your area still has access to great things that you didn't even know existed.
Exactly. Well, thank you. I mean, the next one was the attainment gap.
Oh.
What did you mean by attainment gap?
Okay, so this one is really close to me. My dissertation was actually on this. So I can't remember what it was called, but it was something like the attainment gap of Black, minority and ethnic students. So for me, the attainment gap, again, I'm going to keep talking about parents a lot because a lot of what we do is about how we're raised.
Brought up. Yeah.
The attainment gap is, well, when you think about it purely, it's what's the difference in final degree outcomes of white, Black, Asian, other minority ethnic groups, which actually are global majority groups. But and research tells us, the majority of white Caucasian students get good outcomes. And that's defined, I think, as a 2-1 and above. So a 2-1 is a very good degree. Yeah. A first is a great degree, obviously. But a 2-1 is a very good degree, right? If that means that you're going to have access to great jobs, you're going to be considered by good employers. The flip side of that is if you didn't get a 2-1, maybe you got a 2-2 or third class, what does that mean for you in terms of your ability to compete?
Of course,
in a very competitive.
Chances are low, yeah.
But then there's other things that you need to layer onto that. There's the quality of the education, right? Universities are not the same. They're not created the same. We have Russell Group universities in England for a reason. Yeah. The Harvards of this world for a reason. That said, you can go to Harvard and you can go to Howard, Russell Group, non-Russell Group, and still have two people and their paths are very similar. The trajectories are very similar. So what I'm saying is it's not just the outcome in terms of the attainment. You can have two people with a first class degree. One is working a dead end job or, average salary. The other one is their salary is doing this. Literally.
Yeah, going up, yeah.
So again, it's cumulative. It's not just about going to uni or going to college. It's about what did you learn? Did you apply yourself? I think one of the very first snippets I told you was after my first year of uni, obviously you use your first year to kind of get your head around it, understand, all the skills for higher education, all that stuff. After year one, it's like, okay, yeah, HR is definitely what I want to do. I sought out student services and I went to them and said, okay, I've just finished year one. They're like, good for you. I'm like, serious, I've just finished year one and I want to have work experience in HR. They're like, now you're talking. Well, did you know we have CV workshops? We'll help you prepare for interviews and we do internships. I was like, oh. They were like, yeah, we do 6, 8 and 12 weeks internships. So obviously you can, do say 8 weeks during the summer holidays and do another 4. But yeah, they were like, we can help you with all that. What do I do? They're like, well, you register. They gave me the link. If you want CV assistant to help with your CV, you send an email with your CV to this email and get it started. And I literally did that. Wow. So that meant from year 2, I was actually interning in HR as an HR assistant. By the time I got to end of year 3, I probably built up about 3 months worth of full-time experience in HR. Yeah. And that meant that when I graduated, I wasn't looking for HR assistant job, which is what typically we start off in this field. Yeah. I went to an HR officer job. And actually great. 2 months afterwards, I was made an HR advisor. So what I'm saying is, yes, I had a great degree, but the thing that's helped my trajectory isn't just having a first class degree. Exactly. It's the fact that I applied myself to my degree. And that obviously also helped my degree because I'm able to pull on the experience from working in HR to make sure that I was answering a question and giving real life examples and bringing it to life.
You know what? Most of us go to uni and not even think about that at all.
But there's a role for parents, again, if you think about it. So I think one part of my research was, for my dissertation, it talked about the differences between, across parents from different backgrounds, ethnic, racial and social class backgrounds. And what we tended to find was in some minority ethnic groups, per se, parents would force they would be enforcing, education is really important. When it got to that bit, the most important part, where do I go to for uni? What do I study? The parents do this. It's for the student. It's for their child to decide. Yeah. But all of this time, you've been saying education is important. Face your studies, right? And the point at which they have to make the biggest decision about their education. Well, but then the flip side is the white parents were very involved. They were, so what is it you want to study? Yeah. Why do you want to study that? Yeah. And then like, okay. They were suggesting, I heard that this uni is good for that and that uni is good. They weren't enforcing, the research didn't suggest that they were telling their child, you have to go to Bath, you have to go to Middlesex. Yeah. But they were suggesting, this would be good for what you're proposing to study. Yeah. And again, that plays into it. Of course. Because that's a big decision, right?
Yeah. And obviously, if you think about it, we're quite young to even know exactly what it should be. I think most of us actually picked universities because of how fun it would be.
And also how far away it would be from your parents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You didn't want to be close to home,
away,
right?
far away from home. That's it. I'm picking this uni because it's 5 hours away from home. That's it.
There's no question about it. I can't live at home. Yeah. It's too far.
Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. I know we've joked about it, but if a child needs to go to uni to get as far away from you as possible,
there's a problem.
That's a real thing in itself, right?
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if the best uni for their degree is far away from you, and you've actually suggested, I know it's a bit far. I know it's Scotland, for example, but actually this is one of the best unis for what you want to study. There's something in there, right? Because you've come to that decision together. You've helped that child. I don't advocate parents deciding, especially at that age when you're like 18.
Yeah, of course.
But we should be helping children to make informed decisions and to reach decisions that will be beneficial to them. No. And again, you can get it wrong. It's all right to get it wrong, but the regret thing doesn't sit well with me because it's about, based on what I knew at that point, I made the best decision based on all the stuff that I had available to me, all the factors that I had available. So there's no regret. Yeah. It's, if I had to do it again, the benefit of hindsight, I would do it very differently.
So did your parents help you then when it came to deciding what to study at uni and what was
there's a funny thing in that. So I grew up in a family of lawyers. Oh, so it was kind of almost decided I was going to study.
You're going to be a lawyer.
I was going to study law, right? So in that case, and there is sense in that, and I think we joke about it, but a lot of families, you know, whether you're engineers or teachers or you're educators or whatever, there is sense in that, because if I did pursue law, I have cousins in law, uncles in law, my dad had studied law. It meant when I had difficulties, there'd always be people to help you. So I think there's something in there. Parents do that for a reason, because you already have a network. Yeah. If I wanted work experience, there's always cousins and uncles and aunts that I could, you know, go and, you know, stay for 2-4 weeks and intern or do placements. But the flip side was, I didn't really want to be a lawyer. Everyone was like, you can talk, you can argue from now to kingdom come. Like, there's more to being a lawyer than just arguing, right? But law did help me, because obviously there's employment law in HR.
Exactly, in HR, yeah.
But yeah, so they didn't choose for me, but they were very much, from a young age, it was like, oh, you're a natural lawyer, so this is the path you should probably consider towing. But when I decided what I wanted to do, I was definitely supported.
Okay. And what about CV gaps then? Ooh. Gaps in your CV. You know, I'm thinking of something else, right? I'm assuming having gaps is in skills. So you have however many jobs, and then you just don't put everything in your CV. You don't put all your experiences in that. Is that what you mean by CV
there is
gap?
That. So there's the not having the requisite skills and competence for what you want to become.
Yeah.
A basic gap is not just saying on your CV what it is you're looking for. I see so many CVs. People send CVs to me all the time. Like, Mary, could you help me review my CV? Could you help me do my CV? And the personal profile always throws me, because sometimes they're really well constructed. But I'm like, what is it you're looking to do? What job are you looking to use this CV to apply? That's
you put that in your personal.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even guessed that.
Unless it's very clear from what you've put and what your CV says. For example, if as an HR professional, I'm now looking to start focusing more on the change aspect of my role, unless I call that out, people are just going to think, oh, she's a head of, so maybe now she's looking for director. But I'm thinking, I want to be a head of transformation.
Yeah, of course.
Transformation lead.
Yeah.
I need to call that out.
Okay.
I can still use my HR experience, especially if I go and do transformation within HR. But unless I call it out, people are just going to assume. You're leaving people to make assumptions.
Yeah.
Why do that?
Okay.
You've literally got, say, 2 pages to sell yourself and tell people what you want, why you're the best for it, and why they'd be foolish to not give it to you. You're not going to waste that.
Fair enough.
So there's that. There's also the gap that people worry about, and I guess this is especially pertinent for women when they take breaks to look after family.
Yeah.
Is having that gap in your CV where you're not working. So what I say to that, 2 things. If you are employed, but not actively at work because you're on maternity, that doesn't matter, because you're still employed, right? Your employment date's still, so that's not a thing. However, we do know that research tells us that a lot of women will come out of employment to look after family.
Yeah.
And if you've done that, yes, you will have a gap. Say you took 2 years to raise younger ones, because childcare is crazy expensive. But you need to flip it. Don't talk about don't not talk about it. You have a gap. It's there. Anyone with the dates can calculate that you've got a gap. Just put what you were doing. I can say gap to look after family, but don't stop there. What did you learn in that time?
Really?
If you learned social media skills.
Oh, right.
There are skills that you gain from being a parent. You're negotiating with young people who are very, very convincing, right? You're managing timetables and other people's conflicts and priorities at times. Yeah. Bring that out.
Oh, right.
So I think a lot of people worry about, I have a gap on my CV. That's not necessary. People take gap years. You remember, I don't know if you're young, well, you're quite young, so I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but back in the day, having a gap year to go traveling was a thing.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that, actually.
But that's a good thing. So if you were made redundant, for example, but you had enough money to say, you know what, I'm going to take a year and actually just travel. put that in your CV.
Okay.
If you travel, that's a great thing. Whatever you did, flip the positive.
Okay, so don't focus on the negative and how bad it would be.
No.
Right.
So yeah.
What if someone does take a gap and actually not get anything done, just lying about, or mental health maybe, to just stressed, depressed, and they just had to take some time off? Wouldn't that be seen as a negative, or might be? I mean, an employer might see that and will think.
Well, the thing that comes to mind with that is not just what you say on your CV. Most employers now will do a background check.
Yeah.
And they will typically tell you, and again, it's probably linked to the seniority of the role. So typically 3 to 5 years for most roles is, the time frame they'd go back. So they'd be looking from this point minus 5 years or 3 years. For any periods when you're not economically active and you're not in education, they would ask questions, because obviously whoever the screening provider is, they will say they need you to account for 3 years or 5 years. It's already pre-programmed that they need to know what you were doing for. If you were studying, great.
Yeah.
If you were studying for 3 years and then going back 3 years, it's great. So if your first postgraduate employment, it's not a problem because you've been studying for 3 years. If you have, say, 2 months, I don't know what the kind of tolerance is, but I think 2 months of a gap is fine. Most people, especially if you've been contracting or you ended a fixed term contract to, looking for something else, it's expected that you may have gaps. It's when the gaps start to become significant. So 6 months, for example.
6 months is a big gap.
It could be.
Oh, wow.
6 months a year could be a gap.
Yeah.
Again, flip it. What did you learn in that time? If you were between jobs and it was clear that you were contracting before, then the person reviewing your CV will probably understand contract to life. You're going to have times that you're in a contract and when you're not. If you come from a permanent and you've been made redundant, think about the market when you were made redundant. If you're made redundant during COVID, no one was hiring.
Yeah.
It's not particular to you. It's not something you've made up, right?
I mean, so what about a gap whereby you were just applying for jobs and you just couldn't, and it took you that long to get, especially if it's a career that you're so passionate about that you just don't want to take on any other job how would you flip that then?
The way I would flip that is I would take short courses in that new thing that I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And then position it as, I wanted to use that for a career change. So I pursued relevant short courses. And that's another way to flip it. You mentioned mental health before. Now, mental health should not be a taboo. So if you had to take time out of a toxic environment, again, you're going to need, I don't know how long, you can't prescribe how long it's going to take. It differs from person to person. But you're going to take some time out to look after yourself. I would be silent on that. When, obviously, call it out the gap. When you're interviewed, you read the room. And you read the empathy and emotional intelligence of the person asking the question.
Right.
If I think that's a person that will understand, I will just be honest.
How would you know, Adam?
Well,
because
I always say the interview is a two-way street. So they're interviewing you to see if you're a good fit. You should be interviewing them to make sure that they're not going to jeopardize your mental health.
Okay.
And your career.
Okay.
Because if they mess you up after 3 months, you might then have a 6 month gap, right?
Yeah.
So it's a two-way street. It's little cues. For example, did you keep me waiting? If I showed up on time, maybe 5 minutes early, did you keep me waiting? When you came to collect me from reception, did you acknowledge your receptionist? There's so many little cues about what's a toxic and what's a healthy environment that I'm checking. The person that's talking to me, do they keep talking about fit?
Yeah.
What's
okay.
fit?
Okay.
There's so many things that you'd be like, it's a bit suspicious, right?
Okay, yeah.
But if I'm feeling that, yes, you really want me to succeed in this interview, I'm getting good vibes and, your emotional intelligence is definitely there. If you ask me that, I'll say, actually, I left a very toxic situation. Don't ever slate your last employer. That's a given. Don't ever, and there was one manager, she was you don't do that.
A lot of people do that.
You can give it the label if it was toxic.
Yeah.
If it was, threatening your mental or physical well-being, you can give it labels, but don't dwell into specifics of there was this one person and then they never wanted us to leave before 8. Don't go into that. Right?
Yeah.
Then I would say I took time out to look after myself.
Okay.
Again, think about the values. What I would always say is, if there's something like that, when you're researching a company, research their values. If they're saying one of our values is your mental health and your well-being, and then I say that to you, and you go odd, awkward,
because
you're obviously not living your values.
That doesn't mean anything actually, because they can put that on their website.
And a lot of things, are positioned in a way to get people.
Of course.
But it's not necessarily reflective of what's true. So again, if I know that that's a thing for me, I would definitely be all over your website looking at your values. And I would question you. Use the time in an interview when they say, have you got any questions for us? Challenge them on their values. If you say our values are diversity and, or, sometimes they say things, especially in financial services, they say stuff like, our aim is to increase females in senior management and board positions. Ask them. So what's the percentage of females on the board now? What was it last year? If they're saying that's our values,
of course,
throw it back to them. That's what they've done for the first part of the interview with you. They've challenged you on what you've claimed and what your CV says. You need to do. And if people start fidgeting, again,
that's it. Yeah, it's just reading the room. Really.
Read the room. Okay. Read the emotional intelligence and how much you're feeling that the person asking questions has been honest as well.
Okay, and what about the skills and competence gap then?
Oh, that's a good one. So there are two things to this. Sometimes, and I know this will probably resonate a lot with young people, especially those whose education was impacted by COVID or just before. Of course,
yeah.
I see a lot of young people now, and they finish their first degree and immediately go into masters. And I know we've talked about this.
Yeah.
What typically happens is you've got all this academic qualifications, but you don't have the experience. So you then end up coming into the workplace reporting into someone who may not have gone to uni or who may have just have done a first degree. The thing that person has that you don't have is experience.
Yeah. No.
So there's that bit. There's the other bit where you're maybe early careers, you're still learning the ropes. And I think we talk about this a lot. There's that one person or that one role that you want to be. You need to understand how long it's going to take to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying talk to that person and say, oh, Mary, how long did it take you to get to head of? Because my path isn't necessarily, it might have taken me 4 years.
Yeah.
It may take you 3 years, especially if you have the benefit of the mistakes that I made along the way.
Yeah.
But the reason that's important is if in your mind you're thinking, I'm going to go from here to there in a year, and the person's like, mate, it took me 8 years. That's a reality check, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe your 8 years will be my 6 years or 5 years, right? But it's definitely not going to take you a year because sometimes people want to get to the job typically because it pays well.
Yeah, of course.
But if you don't have everything in yours, kind of all the skills and the things that you can draw upon in your kind of archive to say, if that happens, this is how I would deal with it. You're almost setting yourself up to fail.
It's true.
So yeah, the skills and competence gap is a real one. What I say is, and I think we joked about this the other day, use your 20s and 30s to learn as much as you can.
Yeah.
I always say, you may learn, in some jobs you learn a lot and you don't earn a lot.
Yeah.
And other jobs you earn a lot, you don't learn a lot. But you want to make sure that you're learning a lot at the beginning of your career. Especially not just learning in terms of what to do and how to do it, the why.
Exactly.
Why do you do this way?
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand the why, you're going to try and apply the thing, the way of doing in another context. Then it fails and you think, oh, I'm stupid or I'm not so good. It's not that you're stupid. It's because you've taken something out of context and you try to apply it in another context. So learn the why, learn the how, but also learn the things that they've done wrong. Just ask questions. Like you and I, we talk a lot about, oh, Mary, how would you deal with this or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have to make other people's mistakes, but how are you going to avoid that? Just ask them questions. Most people, everyone has an ego, right? So if I think, oh, this person thinks I'm great, and you ask me questions, I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, let me tell you that. You're building social capital at the same time, but if you go to someone and you're respectful and you're saying, I really like how you do this, I really want to learn from you. They don't need to be your mentor formally. You can still learn from them. Yeah. And most people are open to, I want to learn from you.
Exactly. I mean, that really takes us straight to our next one, the curiosity gap. But it's funny how you're saying this now, and I mean, the amount of times I've come to you and I wish I could, guys, honestly, I wish I could be a HR director now. Like literally now. And that's honestly because of just how much they earn. I'm thinking, I want to earn a lot of money. But I told Mary before that she's humbled me so much in the fact that I actually don't have the skills to do that, bro. As much as I want to be there, even if I was offered the role now, I'm gonna have to turn it down because I don't even know what to do. And that really says a lot, because I think in our generation now, we're just moved by the money and the salary. Of course, who doesn't want more money, right? But we don't actually sit back and actually think, you know what, can I do this role? Will this even affect me mentally? Like, can I take on all of these responsibilities? Am I ready for it? And I'm so happy you've mentioned that, because honestly, most of us get it wrong. We just go after the money.
I think there's two things in that for me. So the first thing is, yes, you're right. Most people want the bigger role because of the bigger paycheck, right? Of
course.
But my dad used to say, to whom much is given, much is required, right? So,
exactly.
And heavy is the head that wears the crown.
I love that one.
I love that
one. You should have said an African accent.
You should have said that in an African accent. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Right. So the thing is, if you can't call upon experience and there's no wisdom in how you approach things, you're going to be either stressed out, burnt out, or you're going to have to quit, or they're going to sack you.
Exactly.
Right? So that's the first thing. Secondly, if it's about money, a lot of people, it's not that they don't make enough money for their situation. And what I mean by their situation, when you first start working, typically you might still be living at home.
Yeah.
If you're on a good average salary, let's say you're bringing home circa 2,000 a year, a month, right? Between you and I, you know that 2,000, if you're not paying rent, if you're living at home, is not a bad salary.
No, it isn't actually.
So the issue isn't how much you're earning, it's how you're managing that money.
That's another thing.
Right. So if you then go from 30,000, say, to 60,000, but you still haven't learned how to manage money,
you're right.
What's going to happen? You're just going to inflate your lifestyle and you're still going to be broke when you've got 60,000.
Exactly.
Then you're going to jump to 90,000 and you're still broke. Right. 120,000, you're still broke. So as much as it's good, look, we have to have ambition. You have to want the next best thing. Ask yourself, why is it that I want this? Why do I want the HR director role, or the director of X role, or the head of X role? What would I give to that role? Because if it's one-sided, I want it for the money. I want my business card has to be sanging, right? What do other people get from you in that role?
Yeah.
And I think it's that accountability piece for me. A lot of people are in roles that they are under delivering in.
Yeah.
And it's a burden to others, to everyone around them, because it's like, well, we do have someone sit in that seat, but they just dud. They're not serving anything.
Yeah.
They don't fulfill anything. It's just they're in that role.
Yeah.
So ask yourself why you want that role. Then the other thing is ask yourself, where are my gaps? And sometimes you don't see your gaps, so you might need to call on your network and ask them. Okay, so this is the role that I'm looking to go into, short term, maybe 3-5 years plan. What do you think are my gaps? And you have to do this very sensibly, because I always say need to know your tribe. When I say tribe, it's not about the color of your skin or what community you're from. The people that you can trust to be honest with you. A lot of people surround themselves with yes men.
Yes.
If I'm asking you,
I should said yes,
Crystal, this spot on my face, is it big? You're like, which spot? You can see a big spot right there.
It's right there.
You're like, which spot? No, Mary, you're looking glowing. A lot of people, we surround ourselves with people that tell us what we want to hear.
And sometimes it's actually because they think they don't want to put you down though. So
but
I guess
if someone loves you and they want the best for you, they're going to tell you some truths that you're going to think, Jesus, I hate you right now. But it should resonate. When you're by yourself and no one's there, you know that there's some truth in what that person said. You need to surround you. At least, I always say, everyone needs at least one person in their life that's like that. I have a friend, Sarah. Listen, if I ask Sarah, this girl she's something else. If I say, Sarah, does my whatever look big? And she said, babe, it looks massive. Wow. You know, sometimes you see someone walking on the street and you're like, do you not have any family and friends that love you? How did you come out looking like this? Sarah would be like, girl, it's suicide if you go out looking like that. I love you, but
That's good.
The thing is not thinking.
That's good though. How can you say the thing is not thinking? How did you even come up with that? No.
Seriously. So yeah, just surround yourself. Have a tribe, people that you can have honest conversation with, people that will be, say to you, see, you're good in this, but this is your areas that you need to improve on. Yeah. And then really work on that. Give yourself, so rather than saying, I give myself 3 years to become X, tell yourself, I give myself 3 years to learn, to embody X. And
that
I think
is
that's
a very good way to
of
say it.
positioning it.
And I think on the flip side of things as well, someone who is also overachieving in a role and is still stuck there as well, though, because obviously we're talking about just if you're underachieving, but someone could also be very good at what they do. But
that's a trap. And that's one I see a lot. Often it's people that, we spoke about, sometimes you are overqualified for what you do, i.e. you've got the degree, you've got the master's, you've even got the experience. Be careful. There's some managers, they know that you're great. They don't want you to leave. They will keep you where you are, not because, and they always say to you, oh, this is cushy. Oh, stay with me. I think I've told you, I had a manager, early careers, who told me, oh, if you stay with me, I'll make you big in the city. Like, seriously? Yeah, literally.
Are you good?
My girl told me, nothing for you out there, stay with me. Like, seriously, how do we even get to that conversation? So there are people that want to keep you where you are because it benefits them. It serves a purpose to them. Yeah. But you need to be honest. Again, speak to your colleagues. At least have one person you can speak to honestly and let them be honest with you. Do you think I'm delivering in my job? Or do you think I'm still... And if they're like, babe, you've been ready to fly 2 years ago. I think about you every day, like, why are you still here? If people are saying that to you, you need to be asking yourself, what is it that's preventing me from wanting to, or from actually making a move? It could be because people are telling you you're not good enough, or your manager's telling you, or not telling you how great you are. Because sometimes they don't tell you you're not good enough, they just don't tell you how great you are.
Yeah,
but their manager's like, wow, you're the best thing since sliced bread. Okay. But it could also be because you're scared to move on.
You're comfortable.
And then you need to ask yourself, why is that? Why am I scared? So the curiosity gap that you mentioned, now that is a big one.
Yeah.
I find, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but I find that there is a real lack of curiosity. I speak to people now and you're like, oh, how long have you been in this company? Especially when you first join, right? I join a company and you have all these people that you have to meet within week 1 and 2. So, you do the whole nice getting to know you. And I'm like, oh, how long have you been here? And they're like, oh, I've been here 3 years. I've been here 4 years. And then I start asking them about this business area and that business area. Like, oh, I don't know much about that, but let me tell you about what I do. I'm like, how are you been here 6 years, 3 years, and you don't know? You have to be curious. I get it. For most people going to work, it's just about paying the bills.
Exactly.
But again, what you said about, making it in your chosen career. Let's be honest, when you go and sit in an interview, or even when you talk to people at a networking event and they ask, well, what do you do? Where do you work? You need to have a level of confidence in what you do and what your company does. I'm not saying that you're the CEO, you know exactly how much you made as of last night. You don't need to know that. But what do we do? What sector are we in? What's our SWOT analysis? What are our strengths? Where are the threats for what we do, right? How has COVID impacted us? How's the war in Ukraine impacted us? You need to know those basic things, right? Because we talk about networking all the time. How comfortable are you going to be when you're sat in a room with execs and heads of? Some of the most intelligent people I meet are EAs, executive assistants, and PAs. If you think about it, they are exposed to what that CEO is saying all day long.
It's true.
What that COO is saying all day. They know that business inside out. So I know someone who was in fact overqualified. And you ask yourself, why has that person stayed as an EA for so long? They are amazing. Again, could it be that they've been told you're great, but this is what you're great at? So be like those EAs. They know the business, they know the threats, they know the competitors, they know everything about their business. But more than that, they know how they add value. Most people that have an EA, the way they treat, I've worked in places where EAs get nice bags at Christmas. You're like, oh,
I want to be an EA.
I want to be an EA. I don't want their salary.
Go wrong.
But because they appreciate it. So the curiosity gap for me is be curious. Ask how and why.
So not just with your career though. Be curious in every aspect of your life.
If someone's making it, if you've sometimes you see someone, oh, I want to be that person. Well, I like this bit of that person. Don't let the jealousy and envy come into it. Ask them. And I think I've spoken to you about the turning point in my career. I've been in HR for
limited company as well.
Let's talk about that. So let's talk about that. So I've always been in HR. I studied it. And I'm one of those people that a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, this person is a broker. He's making 6 figures. So I'm going to go and be a broker. No, that's his path, not my path. Anyway, so long story short, there was a friend, my husband's friend's wife, right? She came from Africa, probably within 2 years, she was doing really well.
Wow.
It was very evident my girl was doing very well. So one day we went round, they were hosting us, and I just asked her, I was like, babe,
tell us
what's going. And she's like, I just did my project management, and I literally I work for a limited company. I was like, there must be more. She's like, no, Mary, literally there's nothing more. Whatever you're doing, you can just stop being employed and work through a limited company. That was like 2017, I think. So I was like, you know when you think surely it's not, but
yeah, there's more to it.
Let me just apply it, you know. So I got home, and with me, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yeah,
no time for beating around the bush. So that night, I was thinking about nice names, and you run it past. My husband's like, nah. I'm like, okay, what about this one? Nah.
No.
Like, okay, but you're not really helping me. Like, and literally, it was either nah or it's okay. Nah, it's okay. I think within 24 hours, I came up with a name that I liked, and he was like, yeah, that's actually quite nice.
Oh, that's good.
Registered it. I just went on Company's House, registered it. I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know that I would be filing taxes, and I just registered it. And then I thought, okay, she had said, while she did project management, she would suggest that I do Prince 2 because it's easier to get roles in projects, because obviously a project, they need resource to deliver something, and then you go off.
Well,
so I thought,
for those who don't know, Prince 2.
Prince 2.
Yeah.
I think it's projects in controlled environments. That's what it stands for. So it's basically a qualification. There's two levels. There's a foundation and a practitioner. And having it's kind of a badge that you understand projects. You can help deliver within a project, right? So I did the Company's House thing first, money first. Did that first. And then I thought, okay, so that's ticked. My second action point was the Prince 2. So I researched. I found a provider. I think it was a 1-week course, and you would do your foundation. I think after day 2, sit the exam. If you passed, then they will teach you for practitioner, and then you take the exam on day 5 or something like that. It was less than 2,000. So I was like, well, no pain, no gain.
It's true.
So I paid for that. I attended it. I took a week off work, attended it. And from that point on, it was like, okay, I called her back. I was like, babe, so I've registered the company. I've done it. She's like,
where's the money?
You're not beating around the bush. I'm like, so what next? She's like, well, then just update your CV, put your CV out there. If you need any recruiters that I use, let me know. But yeah, that's it.
Wow.
I didn't actually use her recruiters because remember she was a professional, PM. I didn't want to change my career. I was like, I'm going to do what I do, but in HR.
Yeah.
So that's how I started. I literally I was already doing analytics and reward at that point. I got a short contract in a Canadian bank at the time, and it was big. I went from, I think I was on 30 something thousand to like 180 per day, and I was like, oh,
that is fantastic.
I was really feeling myself. But from then on, it just kept going up
increasing,
and up. But the point there is, I could have been like other people thinking, oh, it can't be the job that's making us so wealthy in 2 years. I just asked a question. If you see someone making moves, or there's something that you desire in someone, ask them how did it. I'm not saying everyone is going to be open to sharing, but she was. And, a word is enough for the wise, as my dad used to say. You literally just dropped it, and I was like, okay, I got you. And I just did what I needed to do. So, and that, obviously, I then went back into permanent. But when you've reached a certain day rate, it's almost guaranteed that any permanent salaries that you're negotiating is going to make you smile. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, when it comes to curiosity, I guess that's like the main thing for...
That is the main thing.
Most young people.
Yeah.
I feel like we are curious, but we don't ask the right questions.
Are you curious about the right things, though?
That's also true, though.
Because I find that, again, I'm not generalizing, but I find that sometimes people are curious or nosy, because there's two different things. But like now, social media is just all over. We're like looking into people's lives. You know what your celebrity ate this morning, what time they walk their dogs. Yeah. What does that? To what end?
Yeah, exactly.
This is what I mean. Yeah. Be curious, but about the right things. And that's why everything... back to it's about gift to the future. For me, every decision, well, not every decision. It's not like, what am I going to eat today? And how's that going to feel 2 years time? But big decisions, lifestyle decisions, I always try and play it forward. Yeah. Most people say, if I'm kind to you, pay it forward. I play my decisions forward. I say to myself, what's this going to look like in 12 months, in 3 years, in 5 years? Something might feel good right now, but if you then think in 12 months, in 3 years, definitely, don't do it.
Okay.
Right? So be curious about the right things. Always ask yourself, if it's a big decision, I'm not saying, should we go to a concert? How am I going to feel tomorrow morning? You're probably going to feel crap if you drink a lot of alcohol.
Especially you have work.
Right? But I'm not talking about those things. I'm saying the things that you're curious about, make sure they are things that will add value, not
like
just to your today,
though?
to your... Okay, so one real example that we've spoken about, what to study. Don't just choose something because you're good at it. I think it's good to have something that plays to your strengths. Research. What careers are paying well? If you're motivated by money, what careers are paying well? If you're motivated by traveling, what careers offer me the opportunity to travel? Research what you want based on what your motivators are, and then make an informed decision based on the outcome of your research, right? So be curious in that sense. Be curious in terms of we've said it again, when you see people doing things that you want to do, ask them. That's part of your research. Research isn't always just going online. Speak to people who've done it, who are doing it. How did you start this? What obstacles have you encountered? So that's part of research as well. Curiosity in terms of the people around you. What can they add? We always talk about teamwork, but it's like, there's no I in team. There's no I in team for a reason, because each person brings a different skill set. Make sure, I'm not asking you to be able to do everyone's job, but understand what impact and what they bring to the table, to the team, and see how you can also gain some of that. If you think about when we're in HR, when you go to restructure and lay off people, there's always a ranking, right?
Of course, yeah.
We are looking at the impact of the loss of these people to the organization. The more you're valued, the less likely you're going to be on my hit list.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I know it sounds really harsh, but if anyone can do the job that you're doing, if anyone can bring to the table what you bring, then you have to almost question yourself.
Yeah.
To what end?
Yeah.
So be curious.
I mean, that goes again perfectly with the next one, the knowledge gap as well, because you being curious is you gaining knowledge.
Exactly.
And again, we're not asking the right questions. Because I can be with someone as amazing as you, let's say. You have so many experience. Okay, please don't get big-headed. No, but I could be with someone like you and still not ask the right questions, right? And I only know certain aspects of you. It could probably just be family. Well, any questions I'll ask would be with family, right? All I'll know about you in a sense of family stuff, I wouldn't know a career side, right?
Exactly.
So my thing is, how would you know the right questions to be asking people? Do you get what I mean?
Think about why it is that you're thinking that person's great. So I'm going to give you a real example. When I first made 6 figures, I went to my uncle. I was like, I don't know.
I'm just going to repeat it again. She's on 6 figures. Thank you. But
So one first. I don't know what to do with this. And I was like, well, you need to use it to live a good life, but invest. It's like, but I don't know how to invest. Like, that's the question. Sit down. Let me teach you. But literally, I went to him because I knew that he was good with money. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying? He had his own business. I didn't go to him for business advice. I didn't have my own business. I didn't want my own business. The business that I'd used for contracting was literally just for that. Yeah. I went to him because I saw that he was good with money. And I'm like, I'm going to have all this money. What do I do with it? So you and I, you joke. I'm an old woman because my pension is sweets.
Wow.
Right?
I'm so sorry.
But one thing my uncle said is put a lot of money in your pension, especially if it's like, make sure his salary is sacrificed. This guy he wasn't working. He wasn't employed. He was his own person, business person. It's like, especially if it's salary sacrifice, make sure whatever your employer pays, pay at least that, if not double. If you think, I've been doing that since I was in my 20s. Even when you're making 30,000, if you're putting in at least what your employer pays, if not double, it's just, it's not common sense, but it's just like, come on, it's a no-brainer. Yeah. But it's a no-brainer because someone told me. It's not a no-brainer because it's just known. They don't teach you that stuff in school. So ask yourself, what is it about this person that I really want to learn or gain, and why? Yeah. You can't we all have friends that serve different purposes, right? If you have the friend that is the party animal, if you're feeling down, that person's going to uplift you. You're not going to speak to that person about relationships or finances. They're good for what they're good for, right? If you come to me and say, let's go clubbing, and be like, where's the club? Right?
No, actually, no, yeah. Yeah. You know what? I think mind the gap is such a big topic, especially with everything that you've listed. And talking about it now, it makes me realize, wow.
There's a lot.
We don't know anything at all.
Whatever you think you know, it's probably 1% of what you need to know.
Exactly. And that's why I'm happy that we started this podcast, because we can always delve into certain topics and have time to go just discuss things, just gift the future, I guess, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm all here for it because I'm excited as well. But,
I mean, you're young enough to be gifting the future, right?
I know, right?
Old woman.
I'm old, okay? For everyone wondering, I'm an old woman, okay? I'm a grown, independent woman.
Yes, you are. Yes,
yeah,
you are.
So I guess that leads to the end of our podcast for episode 1, of course. We don't want to give too much. We want to whet your appetite, of course. So
there's a lot more to come.
A lot more to come. But thank you so much, Mary, for the knowledge. And I'm excited to just, do more episodes with you.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will go far. And if anyone has any questions at all ever, always feel free to
hopefully message our platforms. We'll be dropping it.
Exactly. If you have any questions, anything that we mentioned that you wanted to know more about, feel free to let us know. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.